your background. I want to know about your history.
My history, I have probably about 21 years experience as a business person. I managed a small entrepreneurial company from maybe 20 people all the way up to 8,000 people. I went to school during the evenings and I worked during the day. I ended up being an executive vice president of legal affairs, managing legal affairs for class action lawsuits and also human resources, finance, accounting, that sort of thing. Company sold, I lost my job, I opened up a small business. During that time, I started getting more involved in politics. I'd always been involved in politics, but I actually decided to start writing. So I started writing for local blogs. So you get even more emboldened and more passionate about the things that you're seeing around you, from the small city to an entire state. So I sent a few of my stories on to Politichicks, and they decided at that point to make me one of their columnists. And I'm featured in a book in regards to NRA, in regards to why I want to run for assembly seat, what I see that's wrong in this city and this state. So those things are important to me.
You mentioned you're writing with Politichicks, and I did read some of it. You're very passionate on the homeless issue in California. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that some?
Yes, but it's actually a very convoluted issue. It's not just the homeless. It's everything involved in there. We have people that have limits to what they can do without a job. So you have families in there and children in there and pets in there. You have veterans that can't find a job because of the seriousness of a war. So they're coming back and they're displaced and they don't know where to go. Then you have repeat offenders in there, drug addicts that because of these props and AB 109 and 47 are encouraging the prisons and the jails to get them out, throw them on the streets, and keep going with that. So I think we are in a crisis. I think it's got to be a certain level of emergency management. We cannot handle what's going on in the individual cities, just too much. I believe the only way we can carry out a sufficient attack on the homeless situation is to get our National Guard in here. They know how to handle disasters. We don't want what's happened in San Francisco to happen down here in Southern California. We have too many people that have been displaced. We have people that they can't function in society. So they're going to have people come in and be able to evaluate large mass of people. Like when we had them come in during the hurricane, when we had them come in and they help at the borders. We need the military to come in, assess everyone, every single one of them, find out where they belong and help them that way. And every city is going to have to contribute, every last one of them, because they're all responsible for a portion of that homeless. And I think that it's the responsibility currently of our governor to be able to take care of this, because I think most of his problem is his fault. You can't live anywhere down here in Orange County. It is very expensive. People have to be coming in from the inland empires to be able to get a job, and it pays very, very low. They can't live here. For example, my city, it's $96,000 a year medium income to live here. You can't find a job in this city when you have to make $96,000. So you have these people coming in from all over Southern California. They're impacting traffic. We've got a safety issue here. They're also getting car accidents. We have an environmental impact with all the traffic that's sitting on these roads. It's a difficult situation. So I think a good start would be to bring in the National Guard, set up tents, whatever have you, and start disseminating these people into groups. Families go one particular area, Our vets are taken care of immediately. They're obviously going to need health care. So, and what better way to help that than with our military? And as far as drug addicts concerned, because of the early release programs that we have here in California, it is about time that we make that stronger again, keep them in prisons, and if we have to outsource our prisons and our jails, then we damn well better do it, because there's just too many problems in that area, including illegal immigration, funneling drugs in through that particular homeless area. So there's a lot. Homeless just isn't homeless people or homeless families or homeless addicts. There's everything in there. So we need some help.
You mentioned the prisons, outsourcing it. Do you mean like to another state or private prisons?
Private. I know the unions is one of the basic problems, and I actually didn't have that type of answer until I did a little bit more investigating, because I couldn't understand why we have early release program in our jails and our prisons, other than the fact that Jerry Brown and his little constituents up there has decided that would be the best way, but their salaries and the costs associated with having those packed in prisons have remained the same, if not more, and they have extra room in there. So this is not making sense to me. So I believe, and I have been given advice from someone who's very current on the unions, and it is the unions that are stopping outsourcing of this problem. A combination of putting them in another state, maybe a state that has more room, maybe private, that would be the best, I think. Because what better way than to take a population of people and have private companies handle the issues, because then you don't have unions making those decisions for a political candidate, because that's the reasons. They're paying off political candidates with PAC money. So that's a problem. So it all leads us back to almost the same problems. And then, of course, you have the illegal immigration coming in here with, drugs and sex trafficking. That happened right down the street from me in this perfect little city.
Now, you're giving us a lot to cover, so let's go with sober living homes. You mentioned a lot of the drug addicts, right? At this point, they're being released from prison earlier, not going to prison. They've made a lot of the felony drug use now a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. So what can we do? We've had all these sober living homes popping up in family neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Their insurance runs out, or they test dirty, and then they're just sent to the street. It's called curbing. Mm-hmm. What can we do about that? Sober
living is not probably the best place. First of all, you got the neighborhood. And the neighborhoods are always going to say, I don't want that in my neighborhood. They call it NIMBYism. We have it here. So I don't think that's the solution. Again, it should belong to someone other than a politician, because politicians always have their hands in the pot. And if it means that that politician will make money, then they'll go ahead and say, yes, we'll put more sober living in these neighborhoods. And it just doesn't work, because the people who manage those sober living doesn't care. They get a check and they don't care. They don't care whether they go in to their parole boards and check their urine or whatever they do, and it comes out dirty. So I don't believe I think they need to be in jail longer periods, and a mandatory clean time in a substance abuse clinic. It's going to cost, but it costs these sober living areas, and it costs everybody who's got to be around those sober living in stealing of their cars, or thefts in their homes, or anything like this. We're paying police to manage this. So we're already taxing our police with so much. They now have to manage sober livings? No, it's not. It can't be done that way. It should be privatized, and that obviously needs to go to a facility for mandatory. If they're going to use the drugs, we're going to let them use the drugs, then they've got to go to a facility to be cleaned up. And they don't get to go out until they are. That's all.
Another thing you had mentioned is with immigration. I know Sanctuary State, a lot of cities are suing the state. What is your take on that for your district?
Well, I'm encouraged by the number of cities that jumped on that bandwagon. Thank God. I thought that Southern California was immune, and they felt that sanctuary states was the right way to go. I think the majority of our cities down here are fed up with them taking money, food, housing, anything that they can get their hands on, and they get free legal help to stay here. And then that leaves our Americans, America first, to try to fend for themselves. So then we have maybe another homeless issue. So I have a problem with my city. My own city has not jumped on that bandwagon. They've remained silent. That's a problem for me. I'm very happy that we had Los Alamitos to begin, Aliso Viejo, Mission Viejo, I believe Newport Beach, I'm not quite sure, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, I think they came on board just recently. This is very good. San Diego, the entire county jumped on board. So I believe that we have finally had enough. I believe that we now need to get rid of the politicians that are encouraging this type of behavior, putting our communities, our schools, and everything else at risk for MS-13 gangs to come over the border, free and clear. Then we have illegal immigration coming over. We have no history on where these people have been, whether they're coming from El Salvador, Ecuador, Venezuela, who knows? Nobody knows. And I do know that they have sex trafficking coming in, because there was some house not more than 3 blocks from me that had that issue. So it's happening everywhere, in every neighborhood. This has got to stop. And unless we do something with our borders and get rid of this governor who insists on putting his constituents at risk, I think enough people have had enough.
Before we started filming, you had mentioned the gas tax.
Oh, that was awful. And I've written a couple of stories on the gas tax. My issue with that is, first of all, I don't even know how it could have gotten through, because we have so many people that are living paycheck to paycheck and are waiting on their checks just to have enough gas to put in their car to go to work, take their kids to school. So it was blindly sent. And again, I want to mention is that I don't hear from my politicians, the people who Harper is this district. I never heard anything about a gas tax. It just blew right through and no one said anything. Now we're saddled with this horrendous gas tax. So it's being repealed. We're trying to repeal it. But it would have been nice, and this is what I intend on doing, is to make sure that I hold town halls, Facebook town halls. People don't like to come out of the house, but they'll always hear from me by mail, email, or by Facebook, that I'll discuss these issues that's coming up so they will pay attention. Because if nobody knows this is happening, it's going to happen, because we are completely overrun in Sacramento with Democrats and very few Republicans. And what most Republicans do is go up there, vote yay or nay, and just leave them come home and say, I've done my job. What are you talking about? I did all I could do.
So being a candidate that is a Republican woman, are you finding any obstacles on the campaign trail?
Yes, the GOP. I've been bullied relentlessly. Cease and desist orders. You can't run here. I don't want you here. You need to go. There's no room here at the table. That's what Whitaker said when I met him at his lawyer's office. And he said, there's no room here for you. So they want to stick with what they have because it's a protected seat. Even Democrats do this, so it's not something unusual. So when you have someone that is for centuries, and I'm, inflating that, sitting in a seat because they're a seat warmer. That's all they are. They go up, they vote, they come back, they sit. That's really, you don't see them doing anything else. They're not doing anything for you. So why do you keep electing them? I don't understand that. I simply don't get that.
Now, another issue you had mentioned you were passionate about before we started recording was the Second Amendment.
Oh, yes. Our NRA, well, when I used to write about it, and I written a story maybe 3 weeks ago about the Parkland shooting. I waited because I was fearful how I was going to approach that. The one that it's published is about women in the NRA because I believe at that point women are afraid of guns in general. And if you're going to wait at home to let somebody come into your house and harm you or your family, and you're going to tell me that the best thing for you to do is get on the phone and call ADT or the police, it's too late. So learn how to use a gun. Protect yourself. It's no time like the present. This is your property and your family. You need to protect yourself.
You mentioned you don't hear about the issues for Matt Harper, and that is who you are running against.
Yes.
And Matt Harper is the current
Yes.
Assemblyman. So what made you decide to run against him?
Well, at the beginning, I went to the OCGOP, Whitaker, the chairman of the GOP. His office is in Costa Mesa off of Bristol. I went in there, made an appointment, went in there, visited him, and asked him, can we find a place for me? We talked a lot. Not even a lot, just we talked. And he basically said at the end of the conversation, actually he did say, we have no room at the table, and for you. And it wasn't now, it wasn't later, it was period. So he wants to keep the people in the seats that are holding those seats until the entire term is gone. And then they'll move them out and move another one in. Pretty much what they do here with the city council. So the first time I ran was 2016 for Assembly. I received about 20,000 votes. He called me up the day after the votes had taken place, the registrar's office, and he asked me, he called me 7 times. So other than that, I had no conversation with him. So I took the call, I don't know how many calls later, and I said, hello. And he started rambling very quickly. I need you to endorse me. I said, I'm not endorsing you. Why would I endorse you? Well, what have I done? What have I done? I said, I don't know what you've done, but you haven't done anything for your district. And so then he said, I voted. Tell me what I voted for that I should have voted for. And I said, you've done nothing. You voted yay or nay and left the room. You show up and try to push through John Wayne Day or your red light cameras or your plastic bag issues. That's it. There's no meaningful legislation that you have done in this district whatsoever. And I said, I looked at the city that you lived in. He has a condo in Huntington Beach. And I said, do you see the amount of homeless you have? It was on Facebook, how much homeless Huntington Beach Civic Center had. People were stepping over. It's a tourist spot. And he says, yes, but that's not my problem. I go to Sacramento. That's the city council's problem. I said, but you used to be the city council. You have a hand in this. This is one of your cities you represent. So essentially, that was the end of the conversation. I have no desire to ever get to know him or anything about him. He's done nothing.
So when you're elected, what's some of the first legislation you'd like to?
Oh, definitely. I would, like I said, I would support repealing that gas tax. Hopefully, it will be repealed in November. But repealing that gas tax, and then I'd like to work on the AB 109, Prop 47, because that is a core issue with homeless. I'd also like to meet up with whoever the governor is at that time and discuss my thoughts and opinions on calling in the guard, because it's a disaster here. it's become extreme disaster. So those are the things. Sanctuary State also, but I've got all of Southern California, which is almost the entire district except for Irvine, wanting to get rid of the Sanctuary State, and they're fighting and taking up a court with Sacramento to stop it. So I'd like to get behind that, but that's already being done. I'd like to see the entire state do this. So those are probably 3 or 4 items. I mean, I'm on top of the water project. 3 years ago, we established $7.1 billion in water. We never bothered to finish the problem. There's no watershed. We can't take water and keep it. Instead, it just flows out to the ocean. We live in Southern California. Wildfires here. We don't have the water to put it out. So there's some serious issues because we have a bunch of politicians that takes the money and does everything else except for what they took that money for. And we have another bond coming in November for water. And it should be for storage, but they don't.
Why should the voters vote for you over Matt Harper?
Because I care about you. I care about the state. I care about the cities. I care about your kids. I care about the families. I care about the vets. They're all being let down by Matthew Harper. They're being let down by every Democrat and every Republican establishment that's in this state. Not one of them has lifted a finger to help any of you. We've been taxed to death. Nobody can afford a home. You can't find a job close to where you live, so you're spending an enormous amount of time, effort, and money on just trying to get through paycheck to paycheck. Something's got to change. And in order for this to change, we've got to get rid of some of this legislation and start bringing in something new, something different, something that the voters are asking us to. The voters are asking us to stop taxing them. They can't afford to go to the gas pump. They can't afford to live. That's a problem. Everything's been a problem. Instead of hiring or politicizing or voting in that same old person, I see on Facebook, I see on Nextdoor, I see everyone ranting and raving about all of these issues, but there's not one person that's willing to stand up and try and do something for you. I'm telling you I will. I'm telling you I will. That's why you need to vote for me, because I promise there is not a person in this state that will not know my name.